Hey guys, Team with Motorcycling. I'm back with another video for you today. Today I'll be talking about my 2015 Triumph Street Triple. This is a long-term review challenge that was given to me by DOODLE on a motorcycle. She's another YouTube channel that owns this exact same bike. Not this one, but a bike similar to this. And I thought it'd be a good idea to do a review for you guys because I actually have not done a long-term review on any vehicles that I've owned. And with that being said, I'm not a professional reviewer, so if you click this particular video to look for a professional review, it's not going to happen. I apologize for that. The way I do my product reviews is that I talk about some of the reasons why I purchased the product, and then whether those reasons basically are essentially expectations, and whether they have met my expectations after owning the product for some period of time. So to give you an idea, this is a 2015 Triumph Street Triple R. It's got almost 10,000 miles on it. I've owned it for 3 years, and I've done a lot of things with this particular motorcycle, and I'm going to go over that in just a few minutes here. So the first thing I'm going to do is give you a quick walk around, not very detailed walk around, and then I'll go into the reasons why I bought it, and then I'll talk about whether those reasons have met what I need from this motorcycle, and then overall conclusion as to what it's been like to own this particular motorcycle, including some of the things that I have done with it and where I've taken this particular motorcycle and what I've used it for. So let's get started. First, we're going to show you the bike. But before we do that, it's really important for me when I do a review and when I do research is the person owning the motorcycle or using the product. In this case, that's me, and I figured I would give you that in the form of my metrics. I have a 5'2" female rider. I have a 28-inch inseam, and it's important to know that because there are some things I did to this motorcycle to help with that particular, my particular short stature. So that's pretty much all I wanted to tell you about me, and then now let's move on to the bike. Alright, so here's what the motorcycle looks like. Everything on this bike is mostly stock. There's a few things that I've changed, but let's just go over that really quick. First, we have the bar end mirrors. These are Triumph brand. We have the short levers, which are also Triumph brands. The stock ones are a little bit longer all the way to out here, and they're aluminum, and they're aluminum silver color. I wanted black ones. I was going to go with aftermarkets. However, I like the Triumph ones a lot. I like the short levers better on this particular motorcycle because usually I don't care about levers really much, but these ones I do like them a lot on this particular motorcycle. I also installed a phone holder because I do travel with this bike often. I also have a USB port right there, and I have another tender up front, even though the bike comes with a stock tender in the back of the under the back seat. I also installed Watson LED lights. There's a video for that if you want to look at it. Unfortunately, Watson is no longer in business, so I'm not sure what kind of LED lights are available now. So I did install fronts and rears, which we'll get to that in a minute. Otherwise, from the side of the motorcycle, I didn't really install anything else. The foot pegs are stock. Nothing changed there. I also installed some SW Motec saddlebags. There's also a video of that as well if you want to check that out. It's nice and clean when the saddlebags are off, so I do like that a lot. These are the rear LED Watson lights that are white, that matches the paint of this particular bike, which is really nice. Tail tidy on this one. I forgot the brand of this one, but I will put a link in the description below if you want me to. So I like the clean look of the bike in the rear once all of that have been installed. Moving to this side, bobby pins for the rear stand when I do loop the chain. And then the exhaust is still stock because I prefer the stock noise on this bike more than the aftermarket ones on this particular motorcycle. The last thing that I've done to this motorcycle, one more thing. This is the SW Motec tank bag adapter on this particular bike. I like the clean look of it. I did have Krieger ones in the front, but the Krieger adapter piece that went over the whole entire tank left a mark on the paint, and it took me a while to scrub it off, so I was not a fan of that, so that's why I went with this SW Motec ones. These do unhook and hook very easily in order to get to the gas cap, which is nice. Last but not least, and I think it's the most important thing I've done to this bike to fit me since I only have a 28-inch inseam, is the Lust Racing Links. And that's what these are right here, where my finger is. This lowers the whole entire motorcycle down by 1.4 inches, and the bike is stock at 32.5 inches, so that 1.4 inches makes a difference. It puts the bike down to 31.1 inches. However, I also have this shaved another inch, so in theory I can reach the ground at 30 inches in terms of height, but the bike is still at 31 inches in terms of overall seat height, and the bike is still tall enough to keep the original geometry of the motorcycle, which leads to it behaving the way I want in terms of a sport bike. That's the overall look of the motorcycle. Now let's go on to the reasons why I bought this particular bike itself. Okay, so now that you've seen the bike and the quick walk around, I'm going to go over some of the details as to why I purchased this particular bike. The first thing is I wanted a sport touring motorcycle. And the way the bike looks right now is a standard naked bike, and I just thought that this bike would be great to take through the mountains, and it would be great through the corners, and it would be great for a long tour because of the way the seating position is. It's not super sport. I did not want a super sport bike because it looks uncomfortable to me, and I've sat on some and they feel really uncomfortable, and I'm not a fan of it. But I still wanted a sport riding bike, and therefore I went with a standard or a naked style motorcycle. There are other options out there, obviously not just this particular one. However, I chose this particular one because of the next reason, which is I wanted a smooth linear torque band riding motorcycle, and after all of my research it always led back to this particular motorcycle. So I wanted a linear torque band. And then the other thing is that I want a smooth throttle and a smooth brake applications. And again, after all the research, it led back to this particular motorcycle compared to the competition. And when I say competition, I'm talking about the Yamaha and I'm talking about the Suzuki at the time when I was doing research for this particular bike. The next reason is that I wanted something that was less than a liter bike. So basically I didn't want anything that's 1,000 cc's or more because it would be too heavy, and that led to the weight concern of the motorcycle because it would be the first time I ride a sport motorcycle. I'm already a short person, and most sport motorcycles that I looked at were really, really tall, including this particular one, which is at the 32.5-inch seat height. So I wanted something less than 1,000 cc because I wanted something light, and I didn't want anything too crazy powerful because I wanted to learn on a small bike, but I didn't want to learn on a beginner bike like the 400 cc's or the 250s or the 300s at the time. I wanted a 600 cc because I wanted to grow into it but not kill myself on a liter should I make a mistake. So that was the next reason. The last reason is the price. Again, any super sport motorcycles usually is going to cost around $12,000 or more, and I could have bought a Yamaha or Suzuki for less than what this bike cost. However, at the time I bought a last year's model, so it's a 2015, and I bought it in 2016, and I got it for $9,600 versus the $10,600 plus tax and blah blah blah, all that good stuff. So that's why I ended up with this particular motorcycle. It was only like roughly $2,000 more than the Yamaha, but it came out of the box, which leads me to the next reason why I bought this particular bike, is that I wanted something out of the box ready to go. After all of my research, this particular one was the one that was most out of the box. And let me tell you, after owning it, it definitely has met that particular expectation, which I will go over in a minute. The next reason why I bought this particular motorcycle is that I am not a gearhead. I do basic work on my motorcycle, so I have a basic set of tools to do basic work on the bike, like changing the oil, moving the chains, installing different things here and there, but I will not take the engine apart and put it back together a few times a month. That is just not my thing. Therefore, I wanted a bike where I did not have to do much work at all to get it to ride. I prefer spending time riding the bike more than actually working on it. So that's why that's another reason why I chose this bike, and it goes back to the out of the box motorcycle, and that is the reason why I ended up ultimately paying the extra couple grand to get this particular bike. So those are the reasons why I chose this particular motorcycle. Now let's talk about whether this motorcycle has met all of those needs for me. Alright, so let's talk about whether this bike has met my needs. It absolutely has met all of my needs. There are certain things I don't like about this bike, and I will go over that in a few minutes here. It's very minor, but it's still there because it is, after all, not perfect. The first thing is that whether I can use this as a touring bike. I can use it as a touring bike. It does meet my needs in terms of comfort. It is very comfortable for someone like me. I have short legs. For a tall person who is 6 foot or taller, 6'2", 6'4", they might be crammed in this particular motorcycle because it is a small motorcycle. It is not great for touring for tall people, in my opinion. For me, it is perfect. My legs are not crammed on it. I'm not super uncomfortable. The seat is actually one of the nicest and comfortable seats I've ever sat on a motorcycle in terms of sport. As far as touring goes, is very limited in space. What I mean by that is the amount of sheer saddlebags and bags you can get for it. I do have Kriega set up, and it works great if you if I went hotel. I did do a hotel kind of stay touring, and it does work if it's hotel. Camping, however, is a whole different story. It is hard to pack on this particular bike if for camping. So I will tell you, it's hard with the amount of space it has on it. So as far as sport touring goes, it is very limited. There are other bikes out there, like maybe 1,000 liter cc bikes, or 1,200 cc bikes that are going to be a little bit better in terms of touring setup. But for light touring, for someone who doesn't tour often like me, it was fine. It's not the greatest, but it worked fine. So that's one of probably my nitpicks about that. The touring, it works great if I do short distance or short term, but long term, not so much. Performance, excellent. Performance is so good on this bike. The transmission is smooth, the throttle is smooth, the braking is amazing. Even though the front brakes are not Brembos or Nissan, they're still great. Again, it's probably because the bike only weighs 415 pounds wet, which is amazing for a bike of this with this performance. Linear torque, I talked about earlier the reasons why I bought it. It does have a linear torque band, which is amazing. It has torque throughout all the bands, even at low RPMs and high RPMs, up to 12,000. It is very smooth in every aspect of the bike. Every single part on this motorcycle, when I ride it, when it all gets combined together, it feels like a symphony. It feels like a very well orchestrated piece of musical artwork, which is amazing for me. The fact that it's less than 1,000 cc's has no problem for me. It's not a problem for me. It has enough power for the streets because I do ride to work pretty often. Not as much this year, but I do ride to work, and I like riding to work. I like sitting in traffic with it because it's so light, and I just don't need 1,000 cc's on the road. It has way more than enough power for what I need it for. So I'm quite okay with the fact that it's less than 1,000 cc's. And the price, I think it was worth every single penny. At $9,600 was what I paid for it. Obviously, it's just some add-ons that I paid extra. But when I bought the Triumph, they did give me, I think, a coupon or something to buy some of this product, so it offsets some of the cost, which I'm perfectly fine with. And for $9,600, I think this bike out of the box is great. I think it's so good in terms of what it does, in terms of what it gives me, and just no work mechanically. It just comes out. The suspension works, the geometry works, the performance works, the power, the torque band, all of that, the smoothness of the transmission. The transmission is one of the best I've ever experienced on a motorcycle. The triple engine, the noise that this triple engine makes, the whistle is absolutely stunning. I cannot get over how the stock exhaust I've ever experienced is on this particular motorcycle. As you can tell, I'm very excited about this bike. Alright guys, now we've come to the part of the video where I talk about what it's like to own this motorcycle in the last 3 years. I'm going to start off by telling you what I've done with this bike in terms of usage. So first couple things is I've crashed on this bike a couple times. The first time was actually someone who ran into me at a stop sign, which required the bike to go into the shop to get fixed because the subframe had cracked and some of the parts were broken in the tail. The second part was I high-sided around a corner, which also requires some new parts as well. Luckily the tank was not affected. But the reason why I'm telling you this is because from an ownership standpoint, it took 5 weeks for each of those instances to get the bike fixed and fully running again because the parts were hard to come by. The parts, especially these ones right here, they come from the UK. They do require to be painted and all the good stuff, and then because it has to travel from one country to another country, it took a while. I don't know if it's all motorcycles, but it happens. That was what happened with this particular motorcycle, and that's what I experienced with this particular motorcycle. So I want to let you guys know that. I did try ordering the parts as spare parts so that something like that wouldn't happen again. However, even the US distributors were on backlogged in terms of parts, and they didn't have expected arrival times either. Obviously, this was 3 years ago. I don't know if it's changed since then, but I just want to let you know what I've experienced with this bike. The next thing is that I have taken it on tour, hotel base and camping base. Both times, in terms of ride, it is comfortable. In terms of luggage and space for things, it's not impossible, it's doable, but it's not the greatest in terms of carrying stuff. So tank bag, tail bag, saddle bags, even with all of those, For example, hotel base, it's fine. The tank bag and the saddlebag and the tail bag, those combination is enough space for all the clothes that I needed. However, with camping, I couldn't carry my emergency supplies, so I can only do short-term camping. For long-term camping, I have to haul it. So that's what I did in April. I went to Utah with this particular bike, and I used a toy hauler. I actually do own a toy hauler. I don't know if I've told you guys that, but the toy hauler itself, it's easy to get it on and off the ramp and into the toy hauler because of its short wheelbase, and it's super light. So it's pretty simple to get it on and off the ramp. Once it's on the inside the garage of the toy hauler, it's really easy to strap down because it's, again, short wheelbase and it's very narrow. So it's a very easy bike to move around the garage, the parking lot, parking spaces. Speaking of parking spaces, I'm a short person, as you already know from this video, so I had to learn how to ride with one foot down at stop lights, stop signs, things like that, anything stop. So when I get to a parking lot, I do get off the bike and push it into the parking space or push it out of the parking space. I don't have both of my feet on the ground, so therefore I can't just back it in and out while I'm sitting on the bike. So that's something I had to learn while owning this particular bike. At first it was a little embarrassing, but over time I got over it and I'm like, whatever, I don't care how I look. I like the bike a lot. I like how it rides, and it's taught me how to ride so well that I don't care about embarrassing myself by pushing the bike around the parking lot. The next thing is that because it's so tall for me, I had to learn how to do short maneuvers around the parking lot. That also led me to drop the bike the first time I tried doing that, because it has to rev at a very high RPM to get the bike continuously moving, because anything lower than 4,000 RPMs, and if you let the clutch out too hard, it will stall and the bike will drop if you're in a lean position to try to get around a tight maneuver. So that's what I learned about this particular motorcycle. It doesn't have a very low, doesn't have the type of RPM that you think of when it comes to motorcycles like a cruiser would. For a sport bike, it does have good torque throughout all the torque band. However, it does require a lot of revving if you're going from a cruiser to a sport bike. So that's what I've learned about this particular bike, is learning how to keep the RPMs high, above 4,000 RPMs if I'm going to do a tight maneuver around a parking lot. But it's basically overall taught me to become a better rider. I've learned how to corner with this bike a lot better than my previous bike. I've learned how to attack the corners. I've learned how to go around the corner, and the bike is very obedient. So that's the best word I can describe it, is that once I put it in the corner, I put it down, it just goes. It's not very squirrely compared to super sports. It can be squirrely if you come from a bike that is not so quick in terms of responsiveness. It seems squirrely to you, but for me, it's not that squirrely at all. For me, it's very responsive in the corners. I put it, if I look left, it goes left. I look right, it goes right. All right, now let's talk about some of the things I don't like about this bike, or some of the things that make it not so perfect. Now, mind you, these are really minor. Well, one of them is minor. The other two are kind of important if you plan on taking this bike for long road trips. So my first thing I don't like about this bike is this logo right here. Now, I don't mind the logo. It's the fact that it's stickered on is what drives me crazy. I think it should have been painted onto the tank. I know it's going to cost more, but I'm willing to pay for that. The reason why is because this sticker, over time, it starts to look different color than the white. You can kind of see it right here, like the indentation right here. So it's starting to look yellow compared to this, which is white. And I'm not a fan of that. That's why I wish it was painted on and not a sticker. I know it's going to cost more, all that good stuff, because it's going to be onto the paint. But this paint looks so good with the sparkle white, but yet I have this sticker that's ever slightly slowly changing color because it's plastic, and that's what plastic does. The other thing is the amount of space on this bike. Again, this bike is not made for that, and I've compensated by putting on some luggage racks, and not luggage racks, I'm sorry, saddlebags, and a tank ring right there to put the tank bag on, and install some Kriega bags back here. Right now the strap, the loops are hidden right now, but yeah, I've done a couple things to make it so that it's tour ready or tour bearable. However, that doesn't change the fact that it does have very limited space, because it is a sport bike first and a sport touring second or third, depending on who you are. So I bought it for sport touring, so unfortunately that's just what comes with the territory. The other thing is that for a non-super sport bike, this is still pretty aggressive. If you were to look at other bikes in the same class, it is one of the most aggressive in terms of where the handlebar is. So for touring, it's still gonna require the bike to tilt towards the front a little bit, especially if you have short arms like me. So there is a little bit of leaning forward, even though the foot pegs are there and you have the triangle geometry when sitting on it. It's still a little bit, I'm sorry, this geometry right here. But it's still aggressive, so it can be uncomfortable for some people. I didn't find it uncomfortable, again, because I'm short, and I think that's why I fit on the bike well when it's moving and down the highway. It's probably because I'm short and I don't have, you know, my legs aren't cramped all the way up here by the tank. My knee is just right here versus all the way up here, so I think that's why it's comfortable for me. But there is a little bit of a reach from the handlebar down to your shoulders, because the handlebar does sit a little bit lower than most sport touring motorcycles. All right, so that's the only 3 complaints I really have about this bike, one of which is cosmetics, and the other 2 are functional, you know, from a functional standpoint. So keep that in mind. And I think that's all I need to tell you. So this is Seeing with Motorcycling. I hope you guys have enjoyed the review. If you have any questions, comments, tell me what you think about the bike. Tell me if this is your dream bike, because I know it is. Leave it in the comment section or PM me, and I will answer any questions you have about the motorcycle. Until next time, I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.